Hello friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I have something different for you. I've put together a list of the 10 videos on YouTube that have been the most influential and certainly my favorites on YouTube related to fish keeping. It's a wide range of YouTube creators, and it goes from fish farms to filtration. It's a list of videos that have had an impact on me and possibly even changed how I was doing things and got me to rethink certain ideas that I, up to that point, had held to be true in the fish keeping hobby. So I hope you enjoy this list. Certainly if there's some that you feel that should be on the list, be sure to note them in the comments below. This is definitely not the most definitive end-all list for all time, and there are certainly other videos and other creators that I know I'm going to be thinking of later and wish I had included on the list. I'm going to go ahead and present these to you from number 10, working my way up to number 1, and I'll give you some reasons why each one is so special to me. So let's go ahead and jump right in. If you're new to my channel and you like the content and you like to always be learning about fish keeping ideas and ways of doing things a little bit better, certainly consider hitting that subscription button and the notification bell, and let YouTube know that something good is going on here, and that way YouTube will be more likely to recommend the channel to other fish keepers like you and me. For those of you that have done that, thank you so much, and for those of you that are going to do it in advance, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Let's get on with today's list. Well, we have numbers 10 and 9 on the list are held by the same person, the king himself, the king of DIY, Joey. And at number 10, we have aquarium filtration. Can you have too much? I love the fact that he actually dove into this topic. If I had $1 for every time I've heard you can't have too much filtration, I'd be on the coast of Italy. So he went ahead and tackled this topic head on and gave some very practical advice about and ideas about why it is possible to have too much filtration, and how important it is to understand the circumstances in your particular tank, the different moving parts, the fluidness of your situation, and how to dial in the right amount of filtration. And so that is aquarium filtration, Can You Have Too Much? By Joey, the king of DIY. And number 9, also held by Joey, the king of DIY, How To. The video was entitled How To DIY Aquarium Filter Media. Now, what both these videos did is they took ideas that I was holding on to pretty firmly, like you needed the best high-end, you needed high-end media. That's the only thing that'll work, right? Your more expensive medias, and it also took this idea that add another filter. It took those ideas and kind of shattered them and got me thinking very differently. In terms of this number 9, DIY aquarium filter media, it got me thinking outside the box. You don't need things that have been specifically packaged and marketed as filter media. You can use other products. That led me to pumice, right? Garden pumice. It led me to using sponges as my primary beneficial bacteria media, and ultimately to using a deeper substrate. So it got me off the idea that I had to provide a specific home for beneficial bacteria that had to be made of specific types of material. It got me thinking in terms of lava rock and scrub pads and just about everything. And so, again, one of the older videos by Joey where it was pretty much just him talking. There wasn't a lot of over-the-top sort of stuff going on. It was just a very calm presentation of, look, this is what I've concluded my fish keeping is right, and great videos. Both of those are great videos. If you haven't watched them, I certainly recommend you do. Number 8, another one of my favorite YouTube content creators, the Aquarium Co-op, came up with the simplest explanation imaginable for the nitrogen cycle. I think it's Einstein that had a quote along the lines of, "If you can't explain it to a 4-year-old, you don't understand it." And what was done in that video, what Corey did, was he took M&Ms, he took M&Ms, peanut butter M&Ms, and he presented, using them as props, did a show and tell and a demonstration of what actually is going on from the waste of the fish through to the nitrite to the nitrate, and just the whole shoot match. And it's really should be a part of everyone's fish keeping video library. The Aquarium Co-op's The Aquarium Nitrogen Cycle. Number 7, I go to another big YouTuber and a person I've had the pleasure to meet and speak to, and I actually have a couple videos by this person in a tie for 7th, and that is KG Tropicals, John Hudson over at KG Tropicals, and of course these days Lisa is also very much a part of KG Tropicals. But these were back in the day where John would sit there, I believe, in his shop and just talk to us about fish keeping, and there wasn't a lot of production value necessarily, and there wasn't a lot of fancy editing or music or special effects. It was really just one person keeping fish talking to other people keeping fish, and the 2 videos are top 5 African cichlids, and the other one was Buccochromis notatania, his video on Buccochromis notatania. He put out his video, Top 5 African Cichlids, and it got me thinking about what direction I wanted to go with African cichlids. I believe at the time I had a mixed tank, and when I say mixed, I mean mixed. I had Victorians, Tanganicans, Mabuna, I had haps, I had Protomelis and peacocks, and they're all mixed together in a big hodgepodge. And that video got me thinking in terms of ultimately the direction I would like to go in, and probably contributed to some degree to my ultimately deciding to go with peacocks and haps as the 2. Of course, that's changed since then, but that influence. And then his video on Buccochromis notatania, to me, it just kind of reinforced and helped to push me over the top in my commitment to African cichlids. I just fell in love with that fish and plan to add one to this collection very, very soon. Top 5 African cichlids and Buccochromis notatania are a tie for 7th place on my list of top 10 fish keeping videos on YouTube. Number 6, I've got to include IFG, Evan Alexander, in this list as an early influencer on me. His video, What Are Peacocks and Haps, really helped me to start to understand some of the subtle and not so subtle differences between peacocks and haps. Started Hap Nation, the Hap Nation movement that was going on for a brief period there in the among us YouTubers and cichlid keepers, African cichlid keepers, and it was again a video that influenced me and the direction that I would ultimately be taking in what fish I would be keeping, and back then the term predator hap was being thrown around a lot, and not really a scientific term necessarily, but something that IFG helped to popularize, and his Hap Nation was a big influence in my direction. Interestingly enough, in this video, IFG is behind the camera, and it is one of those earlier videos where he was narrating while showing his tank, and which I find interesting, since it was IFG who ultimately convinced me to get in front of the camera because that's the way I was doing my videos originally. I was just narrating behind the camera, and it was IFG who said, hey man, when are you going to get in front of the camera? So number 6, what are peacocks and haps? Number 5, we're back to aquarium co-op, and in the aquarium co-op we have freshwater aquarium filtration systems, setup, advice, my take. So it's number 5, aquarium co-op, freshwater aquarium filtration systems, setup, advice, my take. And I tell you, if you need a filtration 101 video, and some of you might say, Ben, why are you steering people away from your channel? Yes, I have playlists on canisters, on HOBs, on filtration in general, on subsystems, right? I have those playlists, and certainly watch them if you like to. But this right here is just a great 101 where he just sat down and went from sponge filters all the way over to sump and trickle system type filtrations and sump type filtrations, and really covered the full gamut in a very laid back, simple format that anyone really getting into the hobby could understand. So number 5, freshwater aquarium filtration systems, setup advice, my take, by Corey over at the Aquarium Co-op. And again, this is back in the early days. There wasn't a lot of production value, fancy titles and things. It was him just sitting there, pulling up pieces of equipment and talking about it. Number 4, I have, you know how I do this on these lists, it's so hard to choose. And number 4, I have Primetime Aquatics, and Jason and his crew, and Cichlid Brothers tied in number 4, and both of them are put out very informative videos that help people to understand, and in some cases, in my case, help decide what fish to keep and why, and they're both these videos are explained in a very simple, straightforward format with some video of the fish that's being talked about. And Primetime's video is Primetime Aquatics Cichlid Showdown, African Cichlids versus American Cichlids. Cichlid Showdown, African Cichlids versus American Cichlids. And that's in a tie with Cichlid Brothers. American or African cichlids, which is best? Which is best? And that video is entertaining in that the different brothers more or less get into a bit of a debate as to why their preference, either American or I guess American, South American, or African, are the better cichlid to keep. And it's a great video. It's got some great footage of some great fish. Highly recommended. Number 3 on the list of videos that influenced me the most and that I've enjoyed the most and continue to refer back to in some cases. Number 3 is Pond Guru's Pimp My Filter series. This, just like Joey's video on different ways of setting up media, and this one got me to think this series got me to think outside the box about what could be done with a filter. And he's gone from number 1, I think he's up into the 60s now. I don't know how many he's got, right? The Pimp My Filter series. But certainly his videos on FX6, on Sun, and things like that really helped me to understand, and to this day are the guidelines that I use if I'm going to be setting up a traditional type of canister with your some loose media, right? Sun, for example, loose media at the bottom, and then some coarse sponges, medium sponges, fine sponges, right? So you capture all the particles, and then you have the cleanest water possible flowing over your beneficial bacteria, your rings or your bioballs, or whatever you have in there, and then last chemical filtration, whether it be activated carbon or Purigen or ChemiPure, whatever that might be, that being the last thing that the water goes over before returning to the aquarium. So that got me really thinking about the proper order, the importance of understanding the way water flows in a filter, whether that filter is a sump system, a hang-on back, or a canister. It got me to think in terms of what's the water flow direction and ways to set it up to get optimal performance out of a filter. And that is Pond Guru's Pimp My Filter series. If you haven't watched one, check them out. Check them out for the filter that you're using, and I think he's just about covered every filter made in that series. Number 2 on the list is Rachel O'Leary's video, How I Acclimate Freshwater Fish and Inverts and Why. This really changed the way I acclimate new fish. It really simplified the process for me, and she backed it up with some real science, and she gave me a real good understanding of why she does it that way. It's made sense to me ever since I watched it, and it is the way I acclimate fish. If I ever get into invertebrate inverts, I'll also, of course, use that video and use the drip. But she turned me into a flop and dropper, what you call a flop and drop type acclimator, where you float the fish and then you simply pour the water through a net, capture the fish, and drop them in. It's a relatively simple and quick process, and actually far less traumatic on the fish than long acclimations and drip acclimations and things like this, which fish don't need. Number one, and I also have an honorable mention that is very important. But at number 1, the video that I've probably enjoyed the most and had an impact on me at almost an emotional level was Steve Poland's Big Tanks, Big Fish, and Big Rich touring Ohio Fish Rescue. That video to me was awesome. There may have been other videos of the place before, but that was the one that opened up that world to me of fish rescue, and what was being done by Ohio Fish Rescue, and how somebody can be really all in the hobby and really be helping the hobby it was just a very moving video. I was very impressed. You know, who can't immediately like Big Rich and his family and what he's doing and what he's had to go through to get to where he's at right now. And so if you're not a fan of Ohio Fish Rescue, I do highly recommend you check out their videos, and certainly check out the video that was sort of the breakout for them and actually did very well for Steve as well. Big Tanks, Big Fish, and Big Rich touring Ohio Fish Rescue. Great video. Certainly at the top of my list of favorite YouTube videos, along with, and this is an honorable mention that I have to mention to you, and if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to, and that is Aquarium Co-op's Secrets Shared by an African Cichlid Farmer. Secrets Shared by an African Cichlid Farmer Tour. That is the name of the video. And what it does is it takes you through the farm that is owned by the individual who formulated and essentially was the founder of Extreme Food. And in watching this video and listening to the upwards of 40 years or whatever of adding an ingredient, removing an ingredient, tweaking the food this way, tweaking the food that way, and then seeing the colors of the fish that this individual was growing out in his tanks. It was just eye-opening. There's a Buccochromis featured in the video that you would say was as pretty as just about anything you could run across if you're snorkeling in the Caribbean. It was very, very eye-opening, and just amazed me what could be done with really feeding fish a very properly balanced, nutritious food combination that he then started, marketing, I believe through his brother, was then able to get us extreme fish food. And fortunately for me, the sponsor of this channel, the Cichlid Shack in Arizona, carries extreme, and so I'm able to get my hands on extreme, and I feel it's awesome. It's not the only food I use. You know, I also use Piscean energetics. I use I use Sarah. I love the Sarah story and the Sarah food, and I use even some cobalt probiotic I throw in there. I use the flakes, and I use the pellets, the peewee pellets, and I also use the big fella pellets. But at any rate, great stuff. Opened my eyes up to extreme food and what could be done, what could be accomplished. It set a benchmark for me on the kind of color that you can get out of fish when they're actually in optimum conditions. So that's my list. Those are my 10 best fish keeping videos on YouTube. They are not the 10 for all time for everybody. They are my 10. Please list your favorites down below. Maybe I'll watch them and I'll come up with a second video that lists a new list of YouTube favorites. And it doesn't have to be from big YouTubers. It could be small YouTubers that have put out a gem. And I'd certainly like to hear about it. So comment below. Well, it happens every time. I finish up the video and the editing, and then I remember a particular item that I really wanted to make sure to include in the video. And this was no exception. The list is really not complete without including some of the early videos by Jay Wilson. Jay Wilson was a big influence for me in deciding to go with African cichlids originally. I know now he's into a whole bunch of other stuff, but and working with Shisei and that sort of thing. But originally, his collection of African cichlids, his use of holy rock, and just the beautiful tank that he had, and also his video that introduced me to lower cost filtration. I was starting to think that the hobby was in some ways almost unaffordable when you start looking into the the FX6s and the Eheims and things of this nature. They were so costly. And then here I remember he did one video where he did a comparison between Pluvo and Sun, and spoke actually pretty highly of the results of the Sun 704B, and it sort of opened up a whole other area of filtration for me. And prior to that, I had been reluctant to even use canister filters, but because of that video, I said, okay, you know what, I've got to give this type of filtration a try. And so we've got to include Jay Wilson on the list. So there you go. There's another video that would certainly be at least in the top 5 of this list. So, and I think that's it. I'm sure I'll think of something else later, but we'll catch that in another video. Don't forget to join me on Saturday for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's almost every Saturday, unless I'm out of town. Saturdays at 11 a.m. Central. Great group of fish keepers talking about a lot of wonderful subjects about fish keeping. And we try and keep it right on fish keeping. We don't meander off into the forest and lose our way. Also, if you'd like to support the channel one step further, consider becoming a member of the Garage Gang and a Patreon monthly contributor. The information on how to do that is in the description below the video. Thank you, my friends. You are appreciated. You rock. You are the best. And I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.